if you'd silence your phones and please rise.
Let us pray. For this new day, the gift of this city, and for these moments given to us, your trusted stewards, we thank you, eternal Creator. You who governs us, we pledge ourselves today for good governance. We recall the ancient text that guides us today to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly. We accept the responsibility we have before us to use these minutes well. Grant us, God, to listen with care, speak with boldness and deliberation, and to find genuine common ground. Our prayer and hope is that we will further, in this time together, what is noble, best, and excellent for the citizens of Abita. We offer this prayer and hope in your confidence in your everlasting and ever-present love. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, starting out, mayor's announcements. Push Mo Parade, February 23rd. It's getting close. Remember, the theme is Nightmare.
Thank you. Okay, so Push Mo Parade, once again, February 23rd, 2025. It's getting close. The theme is Nightmare at the Museum. Join and get ready to have fun. LLA, LMA presentations will be Tuesday, March 18th, 2025, 9 to 1 in here. That's all the education classes and training and stuff like that, that's going to be done. And that's open to everybody. Anybody wants to come. Okay, third, Ricky, Marshall, law enforcement report.
All right. This report goes back to 11/1 of 2024 up to today. There were 3 arrests. There were about 3 to 5 assists to outside agencies, whether it be the fire department or the sheriff's office. They've also assisted us a number of times on calls. No summons issued, no residence burglaries I'm aware of. One vehicle burglary. No business burglaries I'm aware of. The traffic incidents for this report were I don't think anybody has seen them, but there was a Santa citation that was made to give in place of a regular citation. And so there were 24 of those issued. What does that mean? It doesn't result in having to come to court. It's just it was Christmas time.
The equivalent of a warning.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
They had
So things that were more serious violations, of course, you didn't get a Santa citation, you got a regular citation. So
Santa
you're on a naughty
citation.
list. So let's see, traffic stops, I have 25 and citations 17. We had 10 traffic accidents and 2 thefts. There were a couple of them were, most of them were on 59, whether it be where traffic builds up approaching the red light, between the red light and Southwind. There was another one around 6th Street and 59. I think there were some injuries in that one. Most of them were just regular crashes, though. And the last on the list is incidents logged. There were 101 during that time period, which if you spread that over every day, it's, at least 1 call a day, and some days 2 or 3 calls a day. So,
What are the dates of this report?
from November 1st to today. Yes, sir.
Last weekend, I heard a big boom, and there was a rumor that it was a car explosion. I wondered if you had any details.
I talked to the fire chief about it. I don't know if he wants to answer that question or if he wants me to answer that.
Chief?
I don't have all the particulars. I just talked to the crew that went out. It initially came
came out as a call to fire ups. They arrived. No fire was present. They remained on the scene a few minutes and left. As far as I know, no injuries or any property damage or anything. I don't know if it's exactly the chicken was on. Yeah.
I can give you a little something on that, because right next door. It was about 10 minutes to 7, something like that, loud boom. Sounded to me like a tree limb fell on my house. But, it wasn't a couple minutes later, the fire department showed up, and I walked over there and I talked to one of those guys, I don't know which one it was. I just asked him if anybody got hurt. He said, no, it was just some guy messing with his car, and he blew something up. So I think he was messing with his fuel system under the hood of the car, and he lit it off some kind of way. Probably was smoking while he was doing it, fooling with gas, you know. But it was a pretty good boom, and so anyway, nobody got hurt, and so it was not a big deal. Just a loud noise. But he was lucky to get not hurt. Yeah.
All right, well, that's all I have. Thank y'all.
Okay, roll call, Leanne?
Alderman Woodrow.
Here.
Alderman Contoy.
Here.
Alderman Saucy.
Here.
Alderman Tomplin.
Here.
Alderman Patterson.
Okay, call for agenda modifications. Hearing none. Chairman updates, we start with infrastructure. EJ?
Yeah, I do. I have some things to tell you tonight. On January 18th, I went out to the maintenance barn to see how they were coming with the new tank, and they were doing demolition, and looks like they're getting along pretty good. But then the wet weather hit them, and the cold weather and everything has slowed them down. So I went back after the snow and looked and saw, and they did make some progress of getting some of that stuff out of there where the new tank is going. So they're making progress, but it's going to be slow on that. But I wanted to tell y'all about a new thing that the administration's doing. I got a note from Danette Jenkins. She says that they're going to give us information to the chairman of these different committees on a monthly basis. So we'll be able to tell y'all what's going on with things out here. And been waiting for that for about 2 years. But anyway, it's a wonderful thing that they're now going to give us some information. So I can tell you about some of the projects that we got going. As I just said, with the water, with the sewer, the WWPTP replacement project, they're doing it. It's just going to be real slow. I hope they can do it on time, you know. And but I looked at some of the drawings while I was out there, and they're all looking pretty good. So, and those guys who were doing the demos, they look like they're pretty competent people. So they probably get it moving along pretty good. And Josh was out there with them, so he was keeping up on everything going on. The Meadows connection, we had John Cantalato here last week, and he gave a really nice presentation. I'm not sure I agree with all of his presentation, and some of it had a little dramatic flair to it, but I'm trying to do my own calculations right now, but I haven't done this stuff in a long time. Plus, dealing with an atmospheric gravity flow system is a little different than what I'm used to. I'm used to dealing with high pressure gas lines. So anyway, so that's going on, and I'll give you some more information about that as it comes along. She told me that in the last quarter they had 292 customer service work orders. That's pretty good, but that's a quarter. So that's a lot of work orders. And I talked to some of those guys in the maintenance department, and they're trying to keep up with them. They do them as they get them. And I think they're keeping up with them pretty good, but our infrastructure is so old and antiquated, it's pretty, you know, they're updating meters and they're changing pipes and things whenever they can. So I got to give them some kudos for just the few guys that they have out there. They're doing a pretty good job, I think. She also told me about Elsie Starr retiring. I'm going to find out from the mayor who's going to keep up with the inventory now for all the infrastructure inventory that we have to have. And he used to keep up with that, and I think he kept up with the gas too. So we'll see who gets to replace him on that. One thing she did bring up in her email to me was people using the waste, these wipes, these baby wipes that are not biodegradable. It gives the sewer system a real problem. It blocks it up. And that's one thing that could really affect the sewer is blockage, because that's the only thing that'll make it stop, some kind of a blockage. And so I'll ask people not to use those wipes if you can keep from it, or at least get the dissolvable kind, because some of them are dissolvable and some of them aren't. So that would help us, help the guys out there with the sewer plant. Let's see, what else? The Burvant project, you all see what's going on with that. Janet told me that they're gonna stripe the thing, what she said last week, they're gonna stripe the thing eventually. And I guess it's better than it was. So, and I don't know if that was meant for me, because I go out to that barn all the time, but they're gonna start limiting access to the barn because they're gonna have a lot of heavy equipment out there and moving around. I mean, personally, I've been to 400,000 construction sites, and I've built some of them myself, so I might still try to ease out there and talk to the guys and see what they're doing, but I'm gonna start trying to keep up with that. And I'm gonna start trying, 2 years ago, we were gonna do a lot of writing about procedures and ordinances and things like that. So I'm gonna start to try to do some of that and see if I can't help them out if they need anything. I'll try to give them whatever they need to keep their work orders going. Okay. Let's see, what else? I think that's about it. One of the big things about management, and especially with maintenance systems, you're always looking for continuous improvement. So we'll try to help them with that, with some nuts and bolts type improvements that maybe we can do without spending a great deal of money. Because our budget is so hard pressed right now, we don't want to try to spend money, but maybe we can do things, more efficiently. We'll see. But I'm going to try to be working with those guys. But right now, my main priority is infrastructure, all infrastructure. Eventually, we'll get some budget going. Maybe next quarter or something, we'll get a budget going. I'm going to try to get some on the water well. We definitely need to work on that, or at least start saving up. Maybe in a couple of years, we can have enough money to do it. Hopefully, the well that we have holds out until we can get enough to do another one. I think that's a pretty important part of the town, because if we don't have water, we never have a sewer. Okay, that's about it. That's all I have for you tonight, but I'm really happy with this monthly update, so we can keep the people informed about what's going on around here, and maybe answer some of their questions about things, or maybe point them in the right direction to find out an answer to a question they have about infrastructure. So we'll try to do that. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Alderman Contours?
Again, Danette was kind enough to send us details about a lot of the things that they've been filing for permits, and so I'm going to go through some of the bullet points related to Health and Human Services. One thing is a lead service line inventory. So the town was supposed to, for LDH approval, inventory their lines to see if any of our service lines for the town water system contained lead. basically the answer is no, so, so they've turned that in and we're good with that. The second one is about cross-connection control policy, so that's where we have multiple pipes coming from different directions that require things like backflow preventers. So they did sort of an inventory of all the business lines that may have backflow preventers, and they've identified some that need to have backflow preventers put on there so that there's not a cross-contamination of lines, and they're reaching out to, I believe, 7 commercial sites that need those, and they're establishing an update to, I guess, to inspect the rest of them, which I think there's 35 currently on a regular basis. Equally, there is an inventory going on the number of individual sewage treatment units in the town. And once they get that sort of inventory, then they're going to look at potential for updating ordinances or discussing potential ordinance updates, again, for water quality issues. There was a compliance order from LDEQ that the town received, basically saying that we weren't quite up to date with the wastewater treatment plant, and obviously we're in the process of working on that, and so basically their compliance order is going to be held until the wastewater treatment plant replacement project is complete. So I guess we're not in danger in that case. There's an ongoing rate study in the water sector. It's being done by Wagner Engineering, and that's to assign a rate for existing water and sewage rates to be charged to customers. We're supposed to be getting that maybe by Friday.
It was supposed to be this past Friday. I just emailed today for an update, but I haven't heard back.
Yeah, so
Hoping it's gotta be this week.
from what I understand, our rates are less than other towns our size, but at the end of the day, you know, we may have to modify our rates. We may even look at establishing different rates for projects built after a certain timeline, so that existing residents aren't paying for future development, but we're gonna have to see how that works out. So more as we find out what happens with that rate study. New permits, the town in 2024 renewed their LDEQ discharge permit, their solids handling permits, and also submitted a small municipal separate stormwater system, MS4, permit application. They're waiting approval of I believe, the MS4. And so overall, they've uploaded all the documents to the LDH portal to get an annual water grade for the town. I believe we have a B, but we're hoping to get an A with some extra points from attending various management training items. So that's kind of like where we are. It sounds like we're getting up to date on being able to file everything on time and doing the best we can to stay within the letter of the law. And then the other thing that was reported on is law enforcement. I think we're still at a situation where we do not have a full set of regulations. I know that there has been a uniform policy that has been enacted by the administration, so all officers have cohesive and professional appearance. But as far as the full details of how we're going to manage the law enforcement agency, I think we still have work to do. So I believe the town marshal was tasked with writing information for policies and procedures related to the deputy marshals, and the town was working on the administrative part of the policy and procedure manual. I have not seen those things in full, but it's my understanding that we still have work to do, and there is not a cohesive document at this point. And the last thing, citations. I believe the town has had 185 citations and 81 incidents within the town limits for the year end of 2024. And you heard the specifics, November through present. 185 citations and 81 incidents occurring within a town. I'm not exactly sure what constitutes an incident as opposed to what was just reported. So that's my update.
Thanks. Alderman Saucy?
Thank you, Mayor. So Finance Committee Chairman update on February 4th. The board will no longer be receiving financial data from the town clerk and the mayor. They have hired a CPA firm, and all financial data will be provided by the CPA firm. That said, we will receive the year-end financial for 2024 in 2 weeks from today on February the 18th from the CPA firm. Is that correct? Reviewing the budget of where we need to be focused for 2025. Obviously, there's numerous categories that are over budget, but more importantly was the excess for the Level Burbank project without board approval. We will be getting the final figures, as I mentioned, in 2 weeks from the CPA firm. As I'm working through the budget for 2025 of what was proposed on December the 17th, I'm really looking to determine what are our wants and what are our needs. Today, we're nearly twice the number of town hall employees under the Fitzmaurice administration and approximately 33% greater than the Lemons administration. Moving forward, we know that sewer, water, drainage, and depending on how this Supreme Court ruling goes, which will somewhat dictate how we approach 2025, we need to really make a serious look at what is warranted and what are our wants. We have a great town. We want to make sure that we've heard EJ talking about the public works employees with Lost One who had a wealth of knowledge. We need to make sure that we're providing them with the right funding. Those that have certifications are a commodity. They're not a commodity, and we don't want to lose them to other cities for more money. We want to make sure that they're paying, that we're paying them properly. Moving forward, please don't take my word. Please think for yourself and do your research. There's a lot of things that have happened to this town in the last 24 months. Read the development agreement for the Meadows. You have to read testimonies of people during trials. When people are arrested, maybe get their information or do your research and find out exactly what happened in the courts. This will be probably the most critical year we've had in the last 6 years because of the cost of possibly moving forward with the sewer plant and having to connect the Meadows. So we can do it. We're just going to have to tighten our belts and be very conservative and find out where we can get money. And I think somebody had posted this. I got a phone call saying somebody had posted something about reaching out to your state representatives for grant funding, whatever we can get. So please reach out to your representatives. Clean water. I had my own water tested at my house out of my faucet, and I was surprised at the amount of chlorine that's in it. It's greater than what is used to treat my pool. So clean water is obviously an important issue, drainage, sewer, and making sure that our staff is properly equipped and compensated. That's it.
All right. So currently, the Planning and Zoning, or P&Z, as I'll call it for short, is still reviewing their proposed changes to the amendments to the Code of Ordinances. So I know it seems like now the master plan is like a long, long time ago, but these things take a long time to then take that master plan and put that into an actual Code of Ordinances that are, frankly, better than our old set were. They were kind of clunky, and some of that stuff was from the 70s and so on, and just was not very forward-looking. And having served on planning and zoning myself, it was really kind of a pain in the neck having to deal with sometimes when you had a list of allowable uses instead of something that was a little bit more dynamic. So they're still reviewing that. As we publicized before, redoing the zoning map and having a much clearer definition of these things is what they're working on right now, which requires clarification and getting more in alignment with that master plan of where things are going to be. Specifically, what they're working on is prohibiting commercial use in areas currently mapped as residential historic district. This is a big one. Adding definitions, clarifying permitted uses, and incorporate the master plan recommended general development standards in the commercial district to improve the interpretation of the code to the minimum quality of future commercial development in the town. So before, if you remember what we had as our problem a couple of years ago with a development that we didn't want to have, a lot of citizens didn't want to have here, one of our problems was not very strict codes that coincided with what we wanted historic-wise with regards to commercial properties. So that's going to have to become part of the code within the town. And then another is to clarify the historic district's function as an overlay district by separating the overlay from the base commercial and residential zoning districts. This also includes things like thinking about what kind of signage, billboards, and things like that we're going to allow, and what kind of allowances we'd make on commercial properties in historic overlay areas of town. Right now, we don't have that big of a problem with people having big billboards up or something like that, but that might be something that people want to propose in the future, so we need to have that addressed in our code of ordinances. So planning and zoning is working on their recommendations that will later be passed to us to pass. So please, if these are things that are of concern to you, obviously some of those things were addressed in the master plan, but these are things that have to be worked out in the fine details. By all means, voice your concerns to planning and zoning as well, so that they can give us as much of a finished product as possible with their recommendations that they bring to us. Most recently, the proposed new auctioneer clinic that's going to be on Harrison Avenue seems to be full steam ahead. If you look back at the, I think it was the November packet for the planning and zoning meeting, you can see the whole layout. They've got the drawings up, 3D images. It's really looks like going to be a beautiful place right there. I think it's about a block west of where Walgreens is on the other side of the street of Harrison is where it's going to be. So that's coming up. And lastly, for those that aren't aware, this isn't in town, but it's one of our mascots. The Abita Brewing Company is planning to open a new brew house in New Orleans on Chapatula Street on that Brewers Row. So Abita will sort of vicariously be represented in New Orleans by the brewery actually having a little small brew house there on Chapatula Street. So something to, I guess, have a little bit of Abita pride in New Orleans. So those are my updates for the planning part.
Two questions, if somebody, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just want to tag on to that a little bit, because I talked to Kristen a little bit this week about basically the moratorium that we've had on commercial, because we didn't have commercial standards, et cetera, and they had to modify some things, as he said, is going to be expiring February 22nd. So we're going to be getting the new updates, we being the aldermen. So if everybody could read them as soon as you get them. She expected to get it to us by maybe Friday. So if you have any comments, it's just on a quick deadline, because Planning and zoning has been looking at this language for a long time, and they're pretty comfortable with it. There were minor modifications that they've been kicking around for a little bit, but we don't want to miss a month, basically, is what I'm saying. So read it when you get it. If you have anything, try to get back in contact with her quickly so that we don't have something that slides in with the moratorium up and the standard's not passed. We'd like to pass them in one meeting.
Yes.
The Ochsner Clinic, it's going to face 59. Are they going to enter from 59 or Harrison? I thought it was 59.
Harrison.
It is going to be on Harrison? Okay. And then, does anyone know when the historic district expanded? Or has it always been what it is today?
No, it's got expanded over time. There were several different
There's
iterations.
been a lot of expansions to it, huh?
Yeah, you could
Okay.
talk to Kristen about that, because it expanded in.
I mean, we've got historic all the way down Dundee. We have historic all the way down Dundee, where have those homes and those slabs that are back there, and then we overrode.
I believe it's on
historic.
one side.
Yeah.
And the other side end or something like that.
Remember, we had, I think 3 years ago, historic was not allowing a building to go forward because the gentleman wanted to build on the slab, and we overruled it and allowed him because the home next to him was on the slab and the home behind him was on the slab. So I just didn't know if historic was too broad, covering too much territory.
Anybody got anything else? Okay. Hearing none, we'll go into new business. This is a discussion about the development of a permitting process. If you ride around Abita and you look on the right-of-ways and you see gas line poles that are marking and telephone columns and transformers, ground transformers and different things like that. Trying to come up with, and that's what the following pages are behind the agenda itself, is about about those kind of things, and maybe coming up with some type of permitting process or something that we could kind of control what they look like, where they are. And I think it's dovetailing on the parish, because I think they're trying to put something together like that as well, so that you don't have orange stakes for, is it Unity or what's the, Vexus fiber, running down here and over here and all over the place.
Backflow preventers.
Yeah.
And welcome that.
Right, yeah, so that's what that's about, and it's just, and we're looking at that as a permitting process, the communication companies, all of that. And I know when we go out and we do Keep Abita Beautiful, and we do a cleanup down, 435, that corner of Allen Road, I walked all the way down there, and I didn't have that much trash in my bag, but when I got there, I filled my bag up with trash. It's all right there, so it just seems like they're kind of magnets for that kind of stuff. So there's some things that we can put in place so that we can kind of control that a little bit and hold their feet to the fire to, cut the grass around them and clean them up and that type of stuff. So that's what it's about, and it's really, just a discussion. So any comments y'all may have?
Yeah, I have some comments about that. That can be dangerous stuff, what you're talking about here. So 3 things I'd like to make sure we have into this procedure or whatever is a lockout, tagout procedure, so that if we're removing anything pressurized or electrified or whatever, that we look at it and make sure it's all locked out before we start tearing it out. Louisiana One Call, we need to make sure we get in touch with them about anything that we're taking out of the ground, just to make sure that we're not doing some sort of a gas line or something like that. Usually they'll come out, if you have a question, usually they'll come out and look at it. And then you have to have something to do with hazardous disposal for things that you take out, like old wires and pipes and things like that. You may have to have some sort of a hazardous disposal part of that procedure. So just those three things I like to think about while we're doing this.
I think it's a good idea. I see that is oftentimes the last thing that's thought about after development that's been worked on for years at a time, and then you arrive and, you know, it's the stuff you don't want to see is what is the front door. And especially where we're talking about the historic district, I think we could have some discretion as to where these things are, or to group things that work together, build small little walls or screening, the kinds of things you have in here. I also see there's options for art projects. I know that a lot of the utilities are little small art installations around Jefferson and other places too. So, I mean, I think all of these things would be nice to consider up front instead of after the fact of a development. So I'm on board with the concept.
Alderman Contois, that's primarily what the focus is about new installations.
Yeah.
And the responsibility of these franchisors to take care of what is already installed. So it provides for maintenance and repair. When we walk down to do the litter cleanup, we'll see AT&T boxes that somebody ran into, and all the wires are sticking out of the ground, and, you know, the plastic is all over in the ditch, and we don't have any provision currently to permit before a new installation. So hopefully we can cover all of those points in some type of new legislation.
I like that idea.
They were having that problem out at the barn where they were demoing out there. They had an above-ground box, an electric box. They were trying to figure out where it went and what the pipes, where it went to, and what were in the pipes and everything else. So
Right, I mean, the permit obviously creates a record of what's in the ground, but also we might want to consider whether or not these are things that are in servitudes, rather than, sometimes people will, you know, actually buy a chunk of somebody's corner lot, or, you know, so what are the pros and cons of whether or not it's allowed in a servitude versus if it's treated differently, if the utility company owns the piece of land or it's right away or
We've
something.
had significant issues over the past probably 3 years with installation in existing neighborhoods where they're going in a right-of-way that they already have access to through the state. But without a permitting process, we don't know that they're here. They don't have to notify us that they're here. And then they go and they hit a water line or they hit a sewer line, and suddenly we have an emergency we're responding to without knowing that they were here. So this will give us an opportunity to know when installations are happening and prepare for them.
Right. And we've also seen a lot of times where people put things in where it's just expected that there is a servitude or a right-of-way when there really was none. So that gets a little sticky. So having to prove that they have a right-of-way before doing the work is beneficial.
Yeah, that's what I was going to add. I think these are great recommendations, and what y'all were talking about, which was having some sort of documentation or mapping of where things are is huge as well. So that, because some of these things, and who knows what kind of future technology, some of these things don't mix. And you know, you can have some pretty nasty consequences when you you know, have people dig up the wrong things.
Yeah, go bore through it.
Without a permitting process, it also became an issue with us trying to recoup the expenses and the costs to repair things that they've broken.
Right.
If we haven't had them register, we don't have contact information for who's the project lead, where we can even reach out to send an invoice for those type of costs.
We do currently have franchise agreements with some of the utility companies, Washington, St. Tammany, Cleco. So if we have an existing franchise agreement in place, that would prevail. If it's silent, then we could probably regulate it. And Edward, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but you and I were talking about that today. We're going to have a review of those franchise agreements to see where we are with that.
And depending on what type of utility it is, sometimes you have to make a choice whether or not you want your buffer there or a servitude, or if there is a servitude going through your buffer, you're going to make up the green space elsewhere. So you might want to look at some language on what happens when you start getting multiple utilities and servitudes in a place where the code says you want to have green space, to see if, there could be some push and pull there to still provide, for plant area, even if it's a replanted area.
Sandra Slifer with Keep Abita Beautiful. As opposed to the town bearing the cost of removal or repair of these utility boxes, I truly do hope that as part of this regulation, that it is up to the utility companies to remove their damaged equipment, that they should be the ones bearing the cost, as well as the whatever safety equipment and that has to that they need. But it should not be of the town's responsibility to remove these damaged or abandoned utility boxes that are out there. Yeah, and I feel kind of strongly about that. So I don't think it should be, EJ, I just don't think it should be the town's responsibility to do this removal of their equipment. That they're the ones that are receiving the benefit, the fees for this equipment. And I feel as if they should be the ones that maintain it and remove it when it is no longer functioning or damaged. That's all I have to say. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah, we'll, on this, yeah, just general discussion, yeah.
This isn't quite what you've been talking about, but while we're talking about utility lines and such like, I think it would be a good idea if whatever regulations and permissions we have, try to strongly encourage them to put things underground, because whether it's electricity or just the internet and cable and stuff, the trees don't care. They just fall on them anyway. And we just live in an area with too many falling trees and high winds and whatnot to have all this above ground stuff, even if it is cheaper. So they'll decide, and you probably can't force them, but I'd like you to think about putting in the permitting process in a way that it encourages them to go underground.
We do have that listed in the quality controls as far as a suggestion that we would encourage undergrounding of utilities, and when it's not possible, like in the case of markers, that we would encourage the use of smaller, less intrusive above-ground components. So that is a good point, and it is going to be considered.
And as we start to amend the development standards through planning and zoning, we can put the requirement into those. I think we can consider, I'm not sure about the legality of it, of requiring that new development have underground utilities.
I know the parish was working on this, like Ms. Reagan said at one point. Oftentimes, I know we have a truck problem in town. There's been plenty of instances where lines have been taken down, and first thing we want to do is blame the truck for not supposed to be there. A lot of times it's not the truck's fault. These overhead lines are never maintained the height they're supposed to by law. Also, a big old issue is if a pole gets hit and that pole is being shared by CLECO and AT&T, CLECO will come put the pole up, put their lines back up. AT&T lines will hang for years. There's a line on Highway 21 that's been hanging for over 5 years. And there's got to be some kind of way the parish can go back on these utility companies to give them a timeline to put these lines back where they're supposed to be. And I'm not talking about a yellow piece of rope tied on a tree, holding it up out of the road for 7 years. There's still lines from several hurricanes ago at 21 and 36 that are being held up by string, tied to a tree limb. That's just, it's asinine to me. They want to rush out there and get whoever's information for their insurance company who caused the damage. to hurry up and try and get some money out of them, but they don't put the money back into fixing it. So at some point, we can talk till we blue in the face about making it as pretty and nice as possible. But if they're not gonna keep it up in the end, there's no sense in it anyway. So I would suggest really focusing a lot more on the end result and years down the road of if you're gonna put a line across this road right here, it better be held up by hardware like it's supposed to and not cotton string. Or if you're gonna put this box here and it gets damaged, you got so many weeks to replace it. If not, we're gonna start fining you. At some point, we got to hold their feet to the fire rather than trying to blame everybody else and so taking, I mean, it's good that the parish is looking and we're looking here, but focus on the far end of that too, is keeping it up down the road. Instead of just make it nice now, let's keep it up. We're not gonna go build a house and not pressure wash it, over the next 30 years. We're gonna try and keep our house nice. We should hold the utility company to the same standards.
I'm pretty sure all those utility companies have some sort of a process that they use to do that kind of stuff. I think probably have a customer complaint department where you could write to them or call them and give them a customer complaint about things like that you see, and maybe they'll go out and fix it,
You complain 1,500 times.
Really? Really?
The telephone pole from Ida in front of my house is still there. And I've called them probably half a dozen times.
We do have a section in here that addresses maintenance requirements for regular inspections, responsibility for maintenance, time frame for repairs. And then we also are going to incorporate, if the board sees fit to legislate this, that there would be penalties, that they would have consequences for failing to perform these maintenance requirements.
For the town, if we're going to be, really following up on that, is to have an annual, I don't know if you want to call it an annual audit, but at least have whoever the utility providers are, like a contact person for each one in town, that we touch base with at least quarterly and say, hey, these are the reports we have, these are issues. And that way, it's kind of building a relationship and showing them that we're paying attention rather than just, oh, we're going to bring you to court out of nowhere. So I don't mind there being, a carrot and a stick, but let's have both.
We usually, we have contacts for CLECO and Washington St. Tammany, so we find that we get fairly quick responses from them. It's nearly impossible to get in contact with anyone at some of the telecommunications companies. We just don't have local representatives, and we need to be able to get that. So if there's any way to reach out to state legislators that maybe could help us with that, it would be a great service.
We can try to go straight to Eric Scametta and see what he's got to say about that. We could write him a letter and tell him what our problems are and see what he's got to say.
Can I speak before I forget what I'm going to say? Yes. Okay. I fully agree with the statement that was made earlier about revisiting franchise agreements, because that's what you're going to get with the telephone, the cable TV provider, and the electric company. And revisiting them and having things that we've talked about incorporated into that franchise agreement will be a better thing to hold their feet to the fire to come do maintenance and repairs and things like that. The other thing I wanted to say was that in the agenda, you make a statement about communications utilities, but I think you're talking about all utilities. Now, the utilities that the town provides, that's going to be fairly easy to implement those things. But I would suggest if you're going to do an ordinance, to take out communications utility and leave it as all utilities. Because I think that was the intent, correct? Okay.
Well, the franchise agreements that we currently have govern the electrical utilities and some of the others.
Yes. Yes, but you have water, sewer, and natural gas. That's not communications utilities, but you want to do something about that. So I'm saying that you need to hone that down a little bit so you're not excluding the water, sewer, and gas.
I think that's not a bad idea.
That's town utilities, and we're kind of working on this point about permit. So we don't normally permit our own installations. I'm just a little confused as, it may be something that we need to give attention to, but I'm not sure how it works together with our own town utilities versus private.
Well, it may have to be reworded then, but right now it says communications utilities, and that's misleading.
One thing we might want to consider, and I haven't seen it in full yet, but I know that there's going to be a set of minimum standards for commercial developments that, we'll be reviewing soon. At the parish level, we didn't used to require a utility plan, but now we do. So that might be a good place for us to be able to look at whether it's going to be private utilities or parish utilities or town utilities, but basically to have a utility plan that goes with the development plan, so that gets us, out ahead of it instead of after the fact. So maybe that's a good place where, all utilities could be mapped, and then you could it would be also a place where you could catch those through the development process where you're going through historic or whatever.
So I guess my question then, though, is that, doesn't this talk about like markers and things like that? It's discussing that. Well, wouldn't you think that you'd want to have something like that too with an installation that was done by the city, where you'd have sewer markers and water and gas markers as well as they install these lines? Anyway, I'm just bringing it up. All I'm trying to say is that says communication utilities, and that's confusing.
And this was just an introductory discussion so that we could get points like yours and consider those when we move forward.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, anybody else got anything about it?
I have one thing.
Sure.
Want to let y'all know in case you were not, if you didn't get the information, but Joe Candelora passed away.
Oh,
He was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer about 8 weeks ago. No, actually about 6, 7 weeks ago. And he finally went home from the hospital last Thursday, and he passed away. So, yes.
and I don't know if y'all know why L.C. Stiers stopped working for us, but it's because he was diagnosed with cancer as well. And he's at an assisted living treatment facility, but he wants to be back home, so that could happen any day. I know he's done one round of chemo that we know about, and it really hit him hard, so.
Sorry to hear that.
Okay, so that's the end of new business. We'll go into old business, which is none. Which then leaves us to the open, Stuart, so you can make up we're not going to give you 4 minutes, so you just get your regular.
I would need a heck of a lot more than 2 minutes to discuss all the things that came up tonight, so I'll skip all that. Everybody's probably still remembers the last election and is tired of elections and all that and is forgetting about them, but Louisiana has about 6 elections every year on the average. The one in February won't affect us, but we do have one coming up in March, which will be some parish tax issues. But what I want to say is, in order to have these elections and for the people to get out and vote, you need to have election commissioners sitting around checking the signatures and all that kind of thing and pushing the buttons on the machines. It's something that any citizen can volunteer to do. And when I say volunteer, I mean you have to come forward. You actually do get paid a little bit. And you can start doing it even as young as 17, a senior in high school. There's some extra requirement, but basically from senior in high school until you're too old to get there, can be an election commissioner. And we're always short. At the last election, I was one of them, and we were short a seat just because we ran out of people. So I'd like anybody who's feeling public-minded, who doesn't mind earning, it's about $200, maybe 2 or 3 times a year. You don't have to go to every one that you're invited to. You just have to put yourself on a list and then accept sometimes. And each time it's a very long day, but it's not strenuous or anything. So I'd urge people to go vote and to take a look at what the clerk has been saying about that sort of thing. Thank you.
I bet Ms. Brewster would love to hear you say that again. She's always looking for commissioners. Plus they pay right away. You get a check in the mail right out, so if you want to make a little money, it's a long day, but it's not hard.
Getting to talking about franchise agreements, it got me to thinking about one thing. Is Abita Springs ever going to get fiber optic cable installed as an infrastructure in the town?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I mean, some people have fiber. I got fiber. I have AT&T fiber at mine.
I think we have a lot of fiber optic cable installed now, at least for the televisions and things. I'll have to look at that, but I think if you look at some of these service providers for television like Spectrum and I think they are using fiber optic.
And I know Unity Fiber went down and went to the school right out here in front.
I think Vexus may have also run fiber optic when they came in and ran about 1.5 years ago. I know they're in Southwind. I'm not sure where else.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So we have.
Inquire.
What's that?
I'll inquire about it then.
AT&T, I know. I mean, I got it at my house.
Oh, okay. And where you live? On 12th Street?
Yeah, they ran it
From 59? Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I know we have fiber here. The town.
I did want to give everyone a heads up. We put a message out on Facebook, but we also wanted to kind of say something at the meeting that when the utility bills were ran this past week or 2 ago, that the gas usage was really high because of the cold weather. So everyone's bills are going to be a bit higher because of that. If you see something that is out of the ordinary, outside of that higher usage and your rates being higher because of that, then you can still reach out to the office, but do expect that those bills are a bit higher because of all the gas usage from the cold weather and the snow.
And so the February bill you get is actually for January. That's the other thing people go, this is February and I didn't use that much. It's been hot. Well, it was January that's your bills for.
Yeah, when I was walking in, I got a news thing on my phone that says there are areas of Louisiana that are expecting slight snow.
Really?
Maybe by Monday.
Well,
Not
maybe,
here.
then
It was beautiful and
hope
it's
not.
over.
Yeah. Okay.
I think all my plants are dead anyway, Kathy. I think all my plants are dead anyway, so.
Yeah, me too. The only other thing that I wanted to bring up is in EJ's infrastructure part. We've got a lot of people out in that yard. I think that's why. I know they said something about, I mean, we have like there's like 4 different companies plus the town that's out there. The Trace Lighting has 2 companies that are storing stuff out there. Lemoyne for the sewer plant just put their portable building and office out there. So, and they've got heavy equipment and all that. And then you have the town trying to get around all their stuff too. So it's really kind of hectic. So I know that's one of the reasons why they're trying to tell everybody, hey, stay out. So,
And because our liability insurance coverage on that building, if something were to happen to someone who was out there, that they wouldn't be covered, and the town would have some liability on
you
that.
got big machines
absolutely.
moving around all over out there, and you can't see one little guy walk behind a machine, or so that wouldn't be pleasant. But anyway, I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, that's true, they do. And some of those guys, they will hurt you.
Yeah. Okay, if that's all anybody wants to talk about, I'll entertain motion to close.
Made.
First,
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Done.
Wonderful.